Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, the Hud, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2. And I hope you like this video. This is a very different video. I like to do different things here. And obviously there was big news on the Hall of Fame front on Sunday night. Jim Leyland made the Hall of Fame. Well, bravo. But there are other candidates. There were other candidates on that ballot, on that contemporary ballot, that were more deserving than Jimmy Leyland. We'll start with Cito Gaston. Cito Gaston won 90 games at least 4 or 5 times in his career as the manager of the Blue Jays. He won 2 World Series for the Blue Jays, back to back. Only time they ever won a World Series. He didn't get a sniff. He got 5 votes out of 16. And you got to get 12 votes, I guess. 12 out of 16 to make the Hall of Fame. He got 5 votes. And he was an okay player. He was okay. I mean, this is not a Torre situation. It's not a Joe Torre situation where he was a Hall of Fame. He was a borderline Hall of Fame player. And being a Hall of Fame manager at the end of his career, put him over the top. Not like that. Louis Piniella. Lou obviously won a World Series with the Reds. Guy won a lot of games. He won more games than Jim Leyland did. And he had a better winning percentage than Jim Leyland did. And so did Cito Gaston. Mention this about Jim Leyland. I'm bouncing around, just so you know. Jim Leyland managed 22 different seasons. 10 of those years were disasters. 90-plus losses, multiple times. He won a World Series in 97 for a team that spent tons of money, brought in veteran players out the boatload, and then ownership traded them away. He had probably the greatest player on his team with the Pirates. He left to go to the Giants. The Pirates were a nothing team, and he complained about it. After the Marlins stripped the team down after the first year with Leyland and they won the World Series, he spent the next few years complaining about that. He goes for 1 year in Colorado, and that was an unmitigated disaster. And it looked like he didn't want to manage. And he admitted it, on Sunday night that it was a disaster there in Colorado. Now he went to Detroit, and he did a good job there. He won a pennant. He had really good teams. They should have won the World Series. The 1 year they went to the World Series in 2006, his pitchers couldn't throw the ball around, couldn't defend any position. They couldn't defend that position. So many errors by the pitchers in that series, just horrible. And they got swept. He did manage great players: Barry Bonds, Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander, believe it or not, Bobby Bonilla twice. Bobby Bo twice. So he's had very good players. But he's a guy that really, if he's going to get in, some of these other guys should get in. I go back to Lou Piniella. He won 90-something games his first year as a manager with the Yankees in 1986. Won a lot of games. He won 116 games in 2001 as manager of the Mariners. The only time that he did not do a good job was when he was managing the Devil Rays. That's the only time he didn't do a good job. All the other times that he was a manager, his teams all competed. They were all good. They all had a shot to get to postseason and compete for a World Series. He did something in 1990. He took over for Pete Rose, which was a very difficult spot. But he showed that Pete was probably the biggest impediment to that team winning the World Series and being a first-place team. And he did a great job there, and he did a great job in Seattle, building up that team with Ken Griffey Jr. and Jay Buhner and Randy Johnson and Edgar Martinez and Tino Martinez as well, and A-Rod. Just managed great players. He should have gotten more of a consideration to make the Hall of Fame because he won more games, he had a better winning percentage, and he was much more successful in more places over a much more longer, sustainable pace. Now we get to the last guy in terms of the managers. This is Davey Johnson, okay? And obviously I'm a Mets fan, I'm biased. But Davey was a great manager. And 13 seasons where he was a full manager, where he managed the entire season as a manager of a team, only 1 year did that team finish below 500. Only 1 year out of those 13 years did he finish below third place. He only finished in third place, I think, twice in those years. His teams either finished at first place or second place. From 1984 to 1989, the Mets finished either in first place or in second place. He won 90 games from 84, 85, 86, 1987, and 1988. 5 years of his first few years as a manager. And he was a young manager, too. He was 40 years old. So you have a guy, and obviously he won Manager of the Year 3 times. He was a guy that was probably the first manager that used the computer. He's the first manager that used the computer to do the lineups and stuff. First real analytical manager of the sort of contemporary era from 1980 on that I remember. Could those teams in the 80s win more? Of course. But, those teams had not the strongest foundation with Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden. Personally. So when you have that, you're going to have an issue. Now, Davey has a higher winning percentage than Jim Leyland, Lou Piniella, and, of course, Cito Gaston. 12 of the 13 years he was manager, his teams had a winning record. Several times, at least 3 teams, he won over 95 games. He won 98 games, I think, with the Orioles, 98 games, or 90-something games with the Washington Nationals as an older manager. So Davey has a better... and I would mention this. He won 1 World Series. But also, one of his contemporaries, Whitey Herzog, also won 1 World Series. And he's in the Hall of Fame. I was thinking about that today. Whitey is in the Hall of Fame. And no one disputes how good of a manager he was. But he won 1 World Series. Davey won 1 World Series. And he had the same leader, Keith Hernandez. So why is Whitey in, but Davey's not in? Now Davey, I would mention also, was a player. Was a really good player. For some really great teams. He was a very good player for really great teams with the Baltimore Orioles. 4-time All-Star. A guy that was kind of like the 6th or 7th hitter on those teams. Those legendary Baltimore Oriole teams. Won 2 World Series. 3 Gold Gloves. He was also a star in Japan. Not that matters. Also hit 40 home runs. He's the only... prior to the last few years, he's the first second baseman that hit 40 home runs. So he was a player that had a lot of talent, and certainly not a Hall of Famer as a player. But he kind of, if you're going to have a guy that wins 1 World Series, and he was a good player, that should be a little extra. Gil Hodges is a good example of that, but Gil was a really great player. That's my take. I'm not taking anything away from Jim Leyland. Just comparing and contrasting him to all these other managers that were on the ballot. And Davey got 5 votes. Gaston got 5 votes. And Louis got 11. And those guys were better managers than Jim Leyland. Why? Because Jim Leyland cursed out Barry Bonds. Did a lot of weird things on the field. Said a lot of funny things on the field. Oh, well. I guess that's how I got in, I guess. Well, let me know what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe to Baseball Hut 2. I'll see you later.